Al-Muwatta. As for Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala, then his name was Malik ibn Anas al-Asbahi. Malik ibn Anas al-Asbahi. And there's a difference of opinion as to when he was born, either 93 or 95, but they agree that he died in the year 179. And as for the book of the Muwatta of Imam Malik, then he mentions that I presented this book to 70 scholars of Medina before I completed it. Or when I completed it, I presented it to 70 scholars of Medina. And all of them accepted it, and thus I called it Al-Muwatta. And Al-Muwatta means that which is generally accepted. So his methodology in this was that he would mention the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and he would put them in order pertaining to chapter headings. That is how he preserved them. And if you look at an interesting statement from Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, who was a student of Imam Malik, he said there's no book on the planet that is more authentic than the Muwatta of Imam Malik after the Quran. Meaning after the Quran, there's nothing more authentic on the planet other than the Muwatta of Imam Malik. So after the Quran, the most authentic book is Al-Muwatta. Now we often hear that Al-Bukhari and Al-Muslim, their books were the most authentic. Now when people hear this, they get astonished and shocked. How could Imam al-Shafi'i say this? The simple and logical answer to this, Imam Shafi'i lived from 150 to what age? 204. He died in 204. When was Imam al-Bukhari born? 194 and died in 256. So Imam al-Bukhari was 10 years old when Imam al-Shafi'i might have made this statement. So when Imam al-Shafi'i died, Imam al-Bukhari was only 10. And the book of Imam al-Bukhari came out many years later. So Imam al-Shafi'i didn't witness the compilation of Imam al-Bukhari, and thus his statement was applicable to his time. Meaning at that time when Imam al-Shafi'i was alive, there was no book more authentic than the book of the Muwatta of Imam Malik. So as for some of the praises of Imam Malik, it was said of him, لا يفتى والمالك في المدينة, that people used to refuse to give fatwa when Imam Malik was in Medina. So when Imam Malik was there, he was the Sheikh of Medina. He was known as Imam Darul Hijrah. So people would resort to Imam Malik for fatwa. The second book which became popular after that and famous was the Musnad of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala. And as we mentioned, the Musnad of Imam Ahmad is designed in such a way that it is in alphabetical order by the names of the companions. So the person who narrated the hadith from the Prophet ﷺ, it will be according to his name that the hadith is placed. And all of them are placed under their chapter headings. As for the number of hadith in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, they range close to 40,000 hadith. And as for who Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala was, his name was Abu Abdullah Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Hanbal. His name was Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Hanbal al-Shaybani. He was born in the year 164 and he died in the year 241. And he also became to be known as the Imam of Ahl Sunnah. And this was due to the strict stance that he took when the fitna of the creation of the Quran took place. Now the third book after that is Al-Jami' al-Sahih, or the Sahih compilation of Imam al-Bukhari. Now the number of hadith in Imam al-Bukhari's book with repetition is 7,397. With repeated ahadith, it's 7,397 ahadith. And without repetition, it's 2,761. So with repetition, it's 7,397. Without repetition, it's 2,761. And as for how the book is laid out, then it is laid out in terms of chapters. Meaning that Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala would mention the chapter heading, and then then the hadith will be presented. So we mentioned, as we mentioned, the first chapter in Sahih Bukhari is Bab Bad al-Wahi, that's how revelation began. And then he mentions the hadith pertaining to the beginning of revelation. And as for the name of Imam al-Bukhari, as we mentioned, he was Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Ismail ibn Ibrahim al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala. He died in the year, he was born in the year 194 and he died in the year 256. Now the book after that is Al-Jami al-Sahih for Imam Muslim. As for Imam Muslim rahimahullah ta'ala, he compiled his book without putting any chapter headings. He had chapter headings in his mind, but he didn't actually write them in his book. So Imam al-Nawawi came after, when he did his explanation of Sahih Muslim, he put the appropriate chapter headings for Sahih Muslim. He was the first one to mention the chapter headings. As for the name of Imam Muslim rahimahullah ta'ala, he was Muslim ibn Hajjaj al-Qushayri. And he was born in Nizapur. He lived from 204 to 261. And in another opinion, 206 to 261. And in all honesty and openness, the opinion that he lived from 206 to 261 is more accurate. And this is based upon the fact that Imam Muslim mentions that he died in 261 at the age of 55. So he said this himself, this was narrated from one of his students who said that Imam Muslim, when he died at the age of 55 in year 261. Obviously it's not possible for Imam Muslim to say I died. It was narrated from one of his students that he died in 261 at the age of 55. So take away 55 years, and you get to 206. And moving on to the next book is Al-Mujtaba. Does anyone know who wrote the book Al-Mujtaba? To give you a hint, it's one of the 4 Sunnahs. You have the Sunnah of Tirmidhi, and Nasa'i, Abu Dawud, and Ibn Majah. Anyone want to take a wild guess? Not Ibn Majah, not Abu Dawud. So you're left with 2.
Nasa'i.
Nasa'i. The book of Nasa'i has 2 famous names for it. There's As-Sunan As-Sughra, and then it's also called Al-Mujtaba. So both of these names are applied to the book of Imam al-Nasa'i. And Imam al-Nasa'i's book has 5,700 ahadith in it with repetition. As for without repetition, I didn't get a chance to look that up, but with repetition there's 5,700 ahadith. And the point that he tried to get across in his book was that he looked at the famous fiqh opinions during his time, and he tried to provide evidence for each opinion of fiqh. So if such and such Imam had this opinion, he would look through the hadith and try to provide an evidence for him, even if the hadith might have been weak. As for explanations of this, then there are footnotes to it rather than explanations by Imam al-Suyuti and by Imam al-Sindi. As for who Imam al-Nasa'i was, he was Abu Abdurrahman Ahmad ibn Shu'ayb al-Nasa'i. Abu Abdurrahman Ahmad ibn Shu'ayb al-Nasa'i. And this should be noted that usually some people, when they read the name in English, they read it as Nisa'i. This is incorrect. It means like the feminine one, or the one, or my women. That's what it means. But it's actually An-Nasa'i, which is an attribution to the land that he came from. And he was born in the year 215 and died in the year 303. Now we move on to the Sunan of Imam Abi Dawud rahimahullah ta'ala. And an interesting point over here is that if you were to look in terms of level of authenticity, the book of Abu Dawud seems to be the 3rd most authentic book after the books of Imam al-Bukhari and the books of Imam Muslim. And the book of Abu Dawud is related again to the chapters of fiqh, and that is what he generally tried to focus on, even though you will find certain chapters of Aqidah and other than that in there. So there are approximately he mentions that when he compiled his book, he selected